India, the land of ancient temples, vibrant festivals, and sprawling cities, harbors a growing environmental emergency, one that threatens not only its beauty, but the health and future of its people. Every year, India contributes nearly 1/5 of the world's plastic waste, a shocking figure that raises serious questions. How did India become such a massive contributor to global plastic waste? And what are the true environmental, social, and economic consequences? Today, we're diving deep into India's plastic waste crisis, peeling back the layers of this complex issue to uncover the challenges and explore potential solutions that could turn the tide on this pollution disaster. India's plastic waste problem is deeply rooted in both its economic growth and infrastructural limitations. In the last few decades, India has experienced rapid urbanization and industrialization, transforming itself into a global powerhouse. However, this growth has come at a significant environmental cost. The demand for cheap, disposable products has skyrocketed, with plastic being the material of choice for industries ranging from food packaging to consumer goods. Unfortunately, the country's waste management infrastructure has not evolved at the same pace. 1. The consumer culture and single-use plastics. The convenience of plastic has led to an explosion of single-use plastics, SUPs, in India. From plastic bags, straws, and utensils to multi-layered packaging used by major food and beverage companies, SUPs dominate the market. These plastics are used for mere minutes, but remain in the environment for hundreds of years, accumulating in landfills, rivers, and oceans. The lack of alternatives to plastic packaging, especially for the vast middle class, has compounded the issue, making it difficult to shift consumer behavior without systemic changes. 2. Waste management challenges. India produces nearly 26,000 tons of plastic waste every day, but only 60% of it is recycled. The remaining 40% either ends up in the environment or is incinerated, releasing harmful chemicals into the air. One of the primary issues is the lack of proper waste segregation at the source. In many urban and rural areas, plastic waste is mixed with organic waste, making it harder to recycle. The issue is compounded by India's dirty secret. 1/5 of global plastic waste comes from here. The limited number of recycling facilities and the informal waste picking sector lacks proper regulation and resources. 3. Informal sector and waste pickers. India's informal recycling sector plays a crucial role in managing plastic waste, but it also presents its own challenges. The waste pickers, often from marginalized communities, operate in dangerous conditions, with little to no protective gear. They manually sort through waste, picking out valuable plastics for resale. While they are key players in India's recycling ecosystem, they face health risks from direct exposure to toxic materials and are often exploited by middlemen. Without formal support, this sector remains precarious and unsustainable. 4. Environmental and health impacts. The consequences of plastic pollution in India are dire. India's rivers, particularly the Ganges, are clogged with plastic waste. Microplastics have permeated the water systems, threatening not only marine life, but also the millions of people who depend on these rivers for drinking water, irrigation, and fishing. The presence of plastic in the food chain, especially in seafood, means that humans are also consuming harmful microplastics. The long-term health effects of ingesting these tiny plastic particles are still being studied, but links to cancer, hormone disruption, and immune system disorders are alarming. Burning plastic waste, a common practice in rural areas and small towns, releases toxic fumes, including dioxins and furans, which are potent carcinogens. These chemicals can cause respiratory issues, skin diseases, and long-term health problems, especially for vulnerable populations like children and the elderly. In cities, the pollution from plastic burning adds to already poor air quality, making conditions in metropolitan areas even more hazardous. 5. The rural plastic crisis. In rural India, where waste management infrastructure is practically non-existent, plastic waste accumulates in open dumps, fields, and water bodies. With no organized system to handle waste, many villagers resort to burning plastics or leaving them in open spaces, where they eventually leach into the soil and waterways. This practice not only contaminates the land, but also poses serious health risks, as residents breathe in toxic fumes from burning plastics. 6. Global plastic supply chains and India. India is not just a consumer of plastic waste, but also a part of global supply chains that contribute to the problem. The country imports plastic waste from other nations, primarily for recycling. However, improper handling of this waste often leads to pollution and health hazards. Moreover, the growth of e-commerce and retail sectors in India has amplified the demand for plastic packaging, fueling a vicious cycle of consumption and waste generation. 7. Legislative and policy efforts. The Indian government has recognized the plastic waste crisis and has implemented several policies to tackle the problem. In 2019, India pledged to phase out all single-use plastics by 2022, but the progress has been slow. While several states have introduced bans on plastic bags and other SUPs, enforcement has been inconsistent. Additionally, the lack of affordable alternatives to plastic has made it challenging for businesses to comply with these bans. The Extended Producer Responsibility (EPR) framework, which mandates that producers take responsibility for the entire life cycle of their plastic products, is a step in the right direction, but requires greater enforcement. 8. Technological innovations and community solutions. Despite the scale of the problem, India is also home to inspiring solutions. Startups are pioneering the development of biodegradable alternatives to plastic, and communities across the country are organizing large-scale cleanup efforts. The city of Indore, for example, has become a model for waste management, implementing rigorous waste segregation and recycling programs that have drastically reduced plastic waste. Meanwhile, innovators are turning to technology, exploring solutions like converting plastic waste into fuel, which could provide both environmental and economic benefits. India's plastic waste crisis is one of the most pressing environmental challenges of our time, but it's not an impossible one to solve. With increased awareness, stronger enforcement of laws, and a shift in consumer behavior, we can reduce plastic waste and move toward a more sustainable future. The fight against plastic pollution requires all of us, governments, businesses, and citizens, to take action. Every small step counts. Now it's over to you. What do you think needs to change the most to tackle the plastic waste crisis? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And if you're passionate about environmental issues like this, make sure to subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the world's most critical challenges. Together, we can be the change the planet needs. Thanks for tuning in.